Okay, recording is now started. I'm going to share my screen with the slides. And it's going to be a little bit different today because I'm going to be sharing from my side to assist the presenter today. I'm pleased to introduce everyone to Richard Asiamah. He and I have been collaborating for the past year or so. He's one of the key members of the OneQuantum Ghana initiative, where our collaboration with the Quantum Ethics Project is to bring exposure to students from the University of Ghana and to bring opportunities to engage in quantum research to their group. And today, Richard will be discussing the reading for this week's reading group, which was concerned with race and technology. Asiamah, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you, Joan, for this opportunity. I'm very good evening to you all. As Joan said, my name is Richard Asiamah, and I'm going to present on this week reading assignment. And I chose the title, is it a race-based or does it exhibit bias? Joan, if you can go to the next slide for me. Okay, so I have a funny video here and I want us to actually enjoy it before I start my presentation. Joan, go on.
We can't hear it on Zoom. Can you hear it in the room?
Joan, we can't hear.
Folks online, I'm assuming people are speaking up because they can't hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call, sharing sound now. Tell me if this fixes the issue.
Coding.
Yeah. So if you can go back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Code works. It's when you are in the. I want to explain something to you. When you are outside of the country, you are like American. You are coding. You'll be coding and then you'll be coming. I don't. The throne. You know the throne. The throne will fall on you, and then.
Okay.
Okay, so guys, it's not this one for us to laugh and also to release the tension. Okay, Joan, let's slide.
Bit of self-conscious, just worried about being intelligible, I suppose.
Okay, so I asked this question myself, that is there bias in the Olympic race competition? Because I believe that for Olympic to be able to organize such an event, they need certain rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations goes for whether you are white or a black or a Chinese. And if you don't follow the rules, you'll be kicked out. So why don't you apply the same thing in our tech industry, where we have rules and regulations that actually governs all of us? Next slide. Okay, so I have this question here. Does technology take after their maker? As the Bible said, that God created man in his own image. Does that mean that anytime there's a technology or anytime there's an AI model that is being developed or that is being implemented, does that AI model actually take after their maker? Does that mean that anytime an AI model is actually biased, is it taken after its maker? These are some of the questions that when I read the book, I started asking myself. Does that mean that anytime I go to the internet and I make a search and I don't get the right results, does that mean that the model is now actually taking out? Who knows? Next slide. Okay, so an example I have over here is when you type the word surgeon in the Google search, most of the results that you get, most of them are all males. On the next slide. When you type nurse also, most of them are also women or females. Does that mean that the model actually did not consider the minority? Because we may have surgeons who are also females, and also we may also have nurses who are also males. But if you look at the results that we just had, we saw that most of the surgeons that the model or the result or the search gave us, most of them were males, and for the next also, most of them were females. So does that mean that the model actually could not generalize to the minority? Next slide. Okay, so in 2000, this resource or this search actually brought a lot of issues where when you type the 3 black teenager and this is the result that came out. I asked myself again that this result does it actually reflect the person who actually developed the model, or is it some influence from the model itself? Because I don't think that the black people, sorry to say, most of them are criminals. That is not the truth here. It cannot be. But why is it that you type this and you are getting these results? Does that mean that during the training or even during the implementation, this was the only images or this was the only data that was available? I don't think so. What I'm actually thinking about, or my conclusion here might be, there has been some form of influence because the dominant population or even the people who are dominant actually have more power as compared to the minority. So maybe that must be the resource that this actually came out. The next slide. Then also when we type the 3 white teenagers, this is what actually came. So I was actually a little bit confused, but I realized that the dominant population actually have more power as compared to the minority. Next slide. Now this is another thing also that also got my attention, which is unprofessional hairstyles. Now we have different population, we have different culture and different people. So as a result, we also have different hairstyles. So I was worried that these AI models, this technology that are being deployed each and every day, are they designed only for specific people and leaving others out? Because when we come to Africa here, the hairstyle that we call it professional might be unprofessional when I come to United States or I come to Canada. So it means that these AI models that are being deployed is actually being done for certain group of people. So if these AI models be able to work actually in Africa or maybe other low and middle income countries, that means we need to localize some of these models. Next slide. So I told myself that then the issue is diversity, because some of these AI models, they are not diverse. They are actually implemented. And the implementation is only for a certain group of people. So when you take a model from the United States and you bring it to Africa, Ghana here to implement it, you don't expect to get that result. So this tells me that during the deployment and also the development, we need to include a lot of stakeholders, people from different parts of the world, so that you're able to build a model world and be able to work anywhere in this world. Next slide, Joan. So I use the term localization, that where some of these technologies and AI models develop with low and middle income countries in mind. I don't think so. Because I believe that some of these technologies, when they are being developed or actually worked on, before it comes to the low and middle income countries, it has already been trained with the dominant data, which is those who develop it. So when it comes to the low and the middle income countries, using them and the results that we get from them, sometimes we are not happy. So I ask myself again that, is it a race-based or is it biased technology. Next slide. So these are some of the proofs. And this one confirms we did a work. My supervisor, we had an issue. We were trying to build a model. He actually built a model, but he told me to work on it. And it was a computer vision, and we're supposed to detect the color of the different races. But the model that my professor worked on during his thesis, it was able to identify the white. But when I use black images, which is black colors, it was not able to. So that one actually got my attention. That why? Does that mean that some of these models actually confirm the racial bias? So my professor suggested that then there's a need for us to start implementing our own models in Africa here. And this one also shows it, that artificial intelligence has a problem with gender and racial bias. So all these things are all proofs. Joan, next slide. This one also is a proof also that also shows that there's indeed a racism in our tech industry. Next slide, Joan. Okay, so I came to the conclusion that there are two things that are actually happening, which is racial bias between the wealthy and the middle or low income country, and also racial bias within the Western countries. Why these conclusions? Now, when you take the Western countries, such as, no, John, please, let's go back. Why these two conclusions? When you take the Western countries, such as American or USA, you have the dominant population, which is being probably the white. So any model that comes, we're actually going to favor the dominant, leaving the minority. But that does not mean that the minorities are bad. It's just that the model was not diverse. It only actually take a group of people into consideration, leaving others. Next slide. So this is what might be the cause, the achievement gap. And we can all agree here that the rich man will never want to come to the same level as the poor. It's only the poor man who has to strive to get to the level of the rich man. So because some of these tech giants or these wealthy nations, they've actually taken the lead, deploying technologies to the level of these low and middle income countries will be hard. That is why some of these models are actually designed to favor them, leaving other countries. Next slide.
And just to jump in on that point, Asiamah, to connect this to the rise of quantum technology and the Quantum Ethics Project's larger mission, all of these trends that we see with existing technology, with AI, with Google search engine and others, these are giving us a roadmap of what we are going to see when quantum technology finally arrives. It'll be this, but exponentially faster. It'll be this, but exponentially more efficient. And this is why this issue is important, particularly for quantum researchers to think about and anticipate, because we can't afford to exponentially exacerbate digital racism. It's just not something we can afford to do.
That is good. Thank you. Okay, so I got this information from the World Economic Forum, and it all agrees with what Joan said. And I had an opportunity to be part of a seminar, and the quantum race was actually between, or is actually between the United States and also China, the person who were able to implement this quantum technology. So when it happens, that means there's going to be some form of bias in such a way that if USA is able to develop its quantum technology well, there are a lot of technology that they will deploy, it will not favor other countries. The same thing goes with China. So what is going to happen to the underrepresented, like the low and the middle income countries? Are we going to be left behind? Is the technology going to favor us? These are some of the questions that I started asking myself. That if you look at the discriminatory in data and also the biased AI design, when quantum computing becomes fully implemented, that means the gap, which is the achievement gap, will keep widening, and we don't want it to happen. So What should we do? Next slide. So I asked myself some important questions. And one of them is, what regulations will help us to address racial bias in tech? Do we have any regulating bodies? Are there even any industrial-wide standard for social impact that fully account for the way in which algorithms are used to allocate housing, healthcare, hiring, banking, social service, goods and services delivery? Are algorithms editing independent and enforceable? Do individuals own their data and have the right to control how a company might utilize that and how a service might utilize that and be able to pull it immediately? Now, these questions are very, very important and they are key because the realization of quantum computing is going to create a lot of issues. And we don't want that. So we need to be able to address these important questions. And how are you going to do that? Next slide, Joan.
To just jump in on some of these bullets, which I think were really fascinating when I read them in the original source material, specifically the third bullet here on auditing algorithms. And Asiamah and I were chatting this morning about this, and I was reminded of this story that it used to be the case that when you went to the grocery store to buy meat, there was a large probability you would get food poisoning because the meat industry was completely unregulated. There were no regulations or industry-wide standards and no system of accountability like an audit to enforce or ensure that the production of this material of meat was safe for the public. And I think we're in the same type of Wild West era for machine learning. The technology arrived, regulation is trying to catch up, and we can see those search results that Asiamah showed earlier in the presentation as the digital analog to food poisoning. This is the example of the public harm that is being perpetuated by these unregulated systems. And so thinking through how individuals can have control over their data, this is actually something we can get to in the discussion. I don't want to take too much away from Asiamah's flow here, but these are kind of the core questions of how we now respond to the racial bias that we're kind of establishing. Go ahead, Asiamah.
Okay. So I advise that with this movement save the situation. So one, we have this movement and quantum ethic project is one of them, which we are trying to take control how quantum computing will be implemented and also how be able to save life. So I ask myself, would this movement save the situation? Next slide. So I'm throwing the question to you to think about, Okay, so I want you to think about it, that this movement, including quantum ethics project, will it be able to save the situation? And if it will, next slide. What is going to be my contribution? So my contribution, next slide. That is why I am involved in the quantum ethics project. So if you look at the left-hand side, there's some students at UG, University of Ghana, that they are on the quantum ethics project, and also OneQuantum Ghana that we are training them. And recently also we had a workshop at one of our university in Kumasi where we train most of the students. We also introduce them to quantum computing and the applications we have. So this is what I'm actually doing. So I asked the question I asked before, that you should think about it. What is going to be your contribution? So that is all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.